This team of astronauts is carrying a nuclear bomb to the sun in order to jumpstart it, but they are about to face some difficult choices along the way. The year is 2057, and the sun is dimming, causing freezing temperatures on Earth. 7 years prior to this, a mission named Icarus was sent to restart the sun, but the ship mysteriously went missing. Now, the same mission is being attempted by the crew of Icarus II. They are carrying a stellar bomb the size of Manhattan, with the aim to detonate it on the surface of the sun in order to restart the dying star. The entire ship of Icarus II is built behind a ginormous shield that protects it from the sun's heat and light. On board the Icarus II are 8 astronauts: Kappa, who designed and operates the stellar bomb, Kaneda, the captain, Searle, the psychologist, Mace, Corazon, Cassie, Trey, and Harvey. Searle is sitting in the observation room of the ship looking at the sun through a window that filters out the sun's light. He asks the ship's AI named Icarus to reduce the filter so he can observe greater sunlight. Icarus shows him just 3.1% of the sun's full might, and it is already more than he can bear. He is fascinated by it. Next, the entire crew is having dinner together when Kaneda reveals that sometime within the next 24 hours, they will reach the dead zone, which means that they will lose all communications with Earth. They weren't expecting this until next week. Kaneda says that if anyone wants to send out final messages back to Earth, they should do it now. Kappa goes in first and records a message for his family where he mentions that by the time they get this message, he will be near the sun. Meanwhile, Corazon looks after the ship's greenhouse and reports to Kaneda that they are producing excess oxygen, which means they will have enough for the return journey. Corazon can tell that Kaneda is thinking about Icarus I, and she says they have no idea what caused that mission's failure, but it definitely wasn't a lack of oxygen. A fight breaks out between Kappa and Mace because Kappa took too long to send his message, and the solar wind has now picked up so they can't send out any more messages. Due to his outburst, Mace has to take a session with Searle, and Searle prescribes him with 2 hours in the Earth room, which is a room that creates earthly environments for the astronauts. Afterward, Mace gives a poorly executed apology to Kappa. Cassie announces to the rest of the crew that they are going to see Mercury passing in front of the sun, and everyone excitedly gathers in the observation room to watch. Afterward, Harvey hears a strange signal and gathers everyone. He reveals that it is the distress signal of Icarus I, which is reaching them now because the iron content of Mercury is acting like an antenna. They check the location of the signal and realize that the ship is close to the sun and only a few thousand miles out from their own trajectory. They all debate whether the crew of the ship could still be alive, but Mace says this is a ridiculous debate since their mission is far too important to abandon just to assist a crew that may or may not be alive. Everyone agrees, but Searle points out that their mission is incredibly delicate and has only been tested in theory. They have no idea if it is actually going to work. However, going to the Icarus I will give them a second stellar bomb, meaning they will have 2 attempts at the mission, which could be worth the detour. Mace says they should vote on it, but Kaneda says the decision must come from the most informed person on the matter, which is Kappa. Kappa admits to Kaneda that whether the bomb will actually reach the surface of the sun is anyone's guess, because there are too many variables to consider. However, he admits that there is no material left back on Earth for another mission, and they are humanity's last hope, so it would be better if they had 2 shots at this. They agree to go after Icarus I. Next, an alarm is heard throughout the ship. The crew gathers to see what's wrong, and Trey reveals that he messed up. He made all the calculations for the new trajectory and turned the ship, but forgot to adjust the angle of their shield to the new position of the sun relative to them. He is beating himself up over it, but Kaneda says that they are not all burning from the sun right now, which means the damage is not that bad. Mace reveals that 4 sectors of the shield are offline, but they can't be reset from the inside because their computer components are burned. They must go out and manually reset them. Kaneda says he will go, and Trey volunteers to go with him. Kaneda tells Trey to stay, and Mace suggests Kappa should go. Kappa and Kaneda wear incredibly thick metallic gold spacesuits and venture out to manually check the shield. Meanwhile, Cassie rotates the shield so that the areas that they are going to check are away from the sun and in the shadow. As the shield rotates, great noises are heard, and Mace says that's just parts of the shield cooling down, and as a result, expanding and contracting. Meanwhile, Trey is still beating himself up over his mistake. Incredibly sweaty and stressed inside their spacesuits, Kappa and Kaneda arrive on the shield and manage to reset the first damaged sector. The crew is excited at this win, but just then, one of the ship's rotating towers comes in contact with the sun rays and reflects the light straight onto the ship's greenhouse, burning it up. Sensing a threat to the mission, Icarus takes control of the ship and begins rotating the shield back to its original position to prevent the entire ship from burning up. Cassie overrides Icarus because if the shield rotates, Kappa and Kaneda will be exposed to the sun. Mace objects and says if they don't rotate the shield, their entire mission will fail, which is more important than the lives of Kappa and Kaneda. Cassie is outraged, but Kaneda supports Mace in this and says nothing is more important than the mission. Meanwhile, Corazon is distraught over the loss of the greenhouse. There is only one sector of the shield left to reset, and Kaneda tells Kappa to go back in the ship as he works on it himself. He manages to close it in time, and then everyone watches on as Kaneda gets engulfed in the full force of the sun. Trey is now sedated in the medical bay, as Searle has declared him a suicide risk. Harvey, the new captain, informs the crew that with the greenhouse destroyed, they no longer have enough oxygen to reach the sun, and going to the Icarus I is their only hope. Corazon, Cassie, and Mace discuss that there isn't enough oxygen for all 7 members. However, if there were only 4 people, the oxygen would be enough to complete the mission. This means 3 of them would have to die for the mission to succeed. Cassie talks to Kappa and says she is certain they are all going to die. She admits that she is scared and asks Kappa if he is scared too. Kappa talks passionately about the stellar bomb and says they will essentially be creating a star within a star. He says it will be beautiful, and hence he is not scared. They arrive at Icarus I, detach from their shield, and dock with Icarus I. Mace, Harvey, Kappa, and Searle enter the ship and begin searching through it. Kappa finds that the stellar bomb is still functional. Harvey finds the greenhouse has been growing this whole time, and Searle finds there is food and running water on the ship. However, Mace finds that for some reason, the ship's flight systems have been disabled. He finds a video message in the ship's files. It's from the ship's captain Pinbacker, who speaks like a religious maniac about how it is humanity's time to die as decided by God and their science and hopes are foolish. He says the Icarus I are abandoning their mission. Mace discovers that the ship's mainframe has a coolant failure, which means that the ship can never fly again. Their trip was a waste. Searle finds the bodies of the Icarus I crew in the observation room. He assumes they were burned as the filter allowed all the sunlight inside. However, he doesn't know why or how. He says the filter is probably fully open, and the only reason there isn't sunlight in the room is because they are behind the shield of Icarus II. Just then, there is an unknown accident, and Icarus II starts floating away from Icarus I. Mace and the gang rush back to the airlock, but Cassie reveals that somehow the airlock has been destroyed, and they cannot dock again. Mace finds a spacesuit inside Icarus I and says Kappa is going to wear it and go back to Icarus II. Harvey objects and asks why only Kappa gets to live, and Mace says it's because Kappa is the only one who knows how to operate the bomb. Harvey gets selfish and says he is the captain, so he should get to live. Mace comes up with a plan. He says they will line up the 2 ships so when they open the door, the vacuum sucks all of them at full speed into Icarus II. Corazon warns him that the temperature in space is freezing, and even a brief journey without suits will nearly kill them, but Mace says it's the best plan they have. Searle reveals that since there is no computer on the Icarus I, someone has to stay behind and manually open the door. Harvey is worried they all want him to stay, but Searle volunteers for the job. Harvey, Kappa, and Mace line up at the door, and Searle opens the hatch. Harvey hits the door on the way out, and his trajectory gets messed up. He flies out into space, freezes, and dies. Meanwhile, Mace and Kappa make it to the ship. Mace has cold burns on several parts of his body, but he lives. Searle enters the observation room of Icarus I, where the full force of sunlight enters after the Icarus II moves. He gets engulfed in it and dies. Back in Icarus II, Mace, Cassie, Kappa, and Corazon discuss that the airlock didn't get destroyed on accident. Someone broke it, and they all suspect Trey. Since Trey is a risk and his death would also free up oxygen for them to complete the mission, they all vote on killing him. Kappa, Corazon, and Mace vote in favor, while Cassie votes against it. She is horrified as Mace prepares to kill Trey. Mace grabs a knife and arrives to kill Trey, but finds that he has already committed suicide. Mace blames Kappa for everything that has happened because it was Kappa's decision to detour to Icarus I. Kappa is outraged, and the two fight, but they can't fight for long because there isn't much oxygen on the ship, and they run out of breath. Later, Kappa is working when Icarus informs him that there are 5 people on the ship, and 1 is unknown. Icarus says the unknown person is in the observation room. Kappa arrives there to find a burnt-up pinbacker who is somehow still alive. He once again talks about Judgment Day like a religious lunatic and says that he is going to be the last person alive to speak to God when Judgment Day comes. He attacks Kappa with a knife in the chest. Kappa runs and Pinbacker follows him throughout the ship. Kappa finds a compartment and seals himself in, but Pinbacker locks him from the outside, trapping him in the compartment. Kappa realizes that it was Pinbacker that destroyed the airlock. Pinbacker goes to the mainframe of the ship and removes it from the coolant, just like he probably did with Icarus I. The ship begins to power down as a result. Corazon finds a baby plant still alive in the greenhouse and tries to call Mace to give him the good news, but Pinbacker arrives and stabs her in the back. Mace arrives at the main computer, which he powers up with a portable battery. He reaches out to Kappa through a suit in his compartment. Kappa tells Mace about Pinbacker, and Mace realizes the mainframe is out of the coolant. Since there is no power, Mace has to manually enter the coolant, which is freezing, to lower the mainframe. Meanwhile, Cassie wakes up in her room and realizes that there is someone nearby. She sneaks away, but Pinbacker spots her and a chase ensues. Cassie runs into the bomb chamber. Mace, who is freezing at this point, tells Kappa that the computer might not come back online in time, so he has to manually steer the bomb into the sun. Trying to lower the last mainframe into the coolant, Mace's leg gets stuck and he freezes to death. Kappa wears the suit in his compartment and uses the heating tool in it to break free. He arrives in the control room and manually detaches the shield and the bomb from the rest of the ship, and then rushes to get on it before it gets too far away. He makes an epic leap from the ship to the bomb and manages to make it in time before the boosters on the bomb turn on. He enters the bomb chamber and finds Cassie there. Unfortunately, Pinbacker is there too. After a brief fight with him, Kappa and Cassie manage to get away, and Kappa reaches the control panel of the bomb. He sets the bomb off. The spectacle is just as beautiful as he imagined it would be. Back on Earth, Kappa's family receives his last message in which he is telling them to just look out for when the sun shines a little brighter, because when that happens, they'll know that Kappa has succeeded. Just then, they look up, and the sunlight increases. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.